We start with a Burdick BMW opening drive.
So Derek Coleman's mad. Derek Coleman's mad. Why would that be? Why is Derek Coleman mad on June 25th? What could possibly have happened on June 25th? Nowhere near basketball season in either direction. That would have made Derek Coleman, who last played a Syracuse basketball game 34 years ago, mad about Syracuse basketball. What in the world here at the end of June could have possibly happened that would have upset Derek Coleman? Eddie Lampkin's wearing his number. Restaurateur to the stars. We snapping. Eddie Lampkin is daring to wear 44 for Syracuse basketball. He will be. And I think we've sort of known this for a while, at least assumed it. Eddie has worn 44 throughout his collegiate career at multiple stops, TCU, Colorado, and now Syracuse. Go back to when he was visiting and like reaffirming, or I lost what. There was a lot of steps to the process with Mr. Lampkin. But he was at Manny's, it appeared, and they had a 44 jersey and popped a Lampkin on the back of it. Like, this was not one of those mysteries that required a lot of devious and confusing clues to figure out that Eddie Lampkin is wearing 44. Well, a picture was out there, the Lampkin next to his locker and the whole thing. Yeah, so Eddie Lampkin's wearing 44. Big deal? Not a big deal. Well, the second most recent Syracuse basketball 44 apparently thinks it's a big deal. John Wallace is the most recent 44, so it has not been an oft-worn number of late. The last two wearers of said number both have their jerseys retired. Not their number retired, their jerseys retired. Syracuse has not retired any numbers for Syracuse basketball. 44 is retired. We think. Where are we at on that? We presume 44 to currently be retired for Syracuse football. Like, we're closing in on like a decade ago when it was unretired there for like an afternoon in the parking lot. I don't know where we're at on that. But let's just go with the fact that Syracuse football 44 is still retired. Derek Coleman is mad. Derek Coleman was tweeting, quote, "I am not surprised by John Wildhack and Coach Red Autry." He said it's added Red's Twitter account and his staff. Orange Nation, the orange is the emoji. "This is why it's such a disconnect between the university and its legends. Coach Boeheim would have never did that. Stop watering down the legacy of 44. What? Why? Is this a big deal? Like, what am I missing here? Okay. So, Derek Coleman's mad. I don't know what Eddie Lampkin could possibly do this season, good, bad, or something that I haven't even remotely comprehended yet. And Eddie's already done a lot of stuff in the last month that hadn't occurred to me before now. So, I don't know what he could possibly do in the course of the next 9 months that he's going to be in Syracuse that would make me change my opinion of Derek Coleman. I don't think there is a single thing that Eddie Lampkin could do. Not a single thing on earth. Criminal, basketball, anything. I can't come up with anything that Eddie Lampkin could possibly do in the next 9 months that would make me change my opinion of Derek Coleman, John Wallace, anyone that has come before that has worn the number 44. I can't think of one. I don't know what Eddie Lampkin could do that would change my opinion of Derek Coleman. Derek Coleman, legend. John Wallace, legend. Eddie Lampkin's going to be playing on the court wearing their number, and he can look up and see both of them every single game. That said, I find the number discussion of this that Derek brought up to be almost the most trivial of all of this. for several reasons. One, it's great to have your jersey retired and all that. I don't know about you. Like, I'm aware that Derek wore 44 and John Wallace wore 44 and Jerry wore 3 and Carmelo wore 15 and, Pearl wore 31, Sherm Douglas wore 20. Like, I'm aware of these things, but, and I get, Michael Jordan 23. Like, you do associate numbers with players. At the same time, though, like if you're a Syracuse basketball fan and you're at the games or you're watching on TV, how are you identifying who the players are? Are you identifying who the players are by the number on their back? Or are you identifying who the players are because that's who that is? Look, that's Derek Coleman because that's Derek Coleman. Like, who cares? Like, yeah, he's wearing a number. It's not football where it's like, oh, yeah, that's Sean Tucker because the running back wearing 34 just went off left tackle. That's Eric Dungy because there's a tall guy wearing number 2 that just did something. No, it's basketball. I know that I need the numbers maybe for the road, the players on the other team. Like when I was sitting courtside for 20 years calling basketball games, like, yeah, that was Brittany Sykes because she ran past me and that's who it was. Not because she was wearing, what'd she wear, 21, I think? I'm not even entirely certain. Like, that was Tiana because it was Tiana. Not because it was somebody else. Like, there goes Jerry because it's freaking Jerry, not because he's wearing number 3 on his back. That's it. Again, that's the trivial aspect of this. The part that I find wild about all of this, and I don't know what their pre-existing relationship is. I'm confused about what their relationship is right now. Why is DC going it red? What is to be gained here that's good for the future of Syracuse basketball by, admittedly, legend of the program, one of the best players ever at Syracuse? If you're making an all-time starting 5, like, at minimum, you're seriously considering Derek Coleman to be in it, and more likely than not, he is. Like, I could make it all-time Syracuse starting 5 without DC, but would I? Probably not. Depends how you're doing the 4. That Wallace guy's pretty good. Like, there's been other guys that are good, but like, you're probably putting DC in your all-time starting 5. Push comes to shove. Then my Mike can play center. He wouldn't like that. Oh, DC wouldn't like that at all. Modern ball, though, DC, center. Oh, yeah, I like that. He wouldn't like that. He's a forward. Again. That's trivia. But why is DC going at red? And I say this not to defend red, but if you're Adrian Autry and DC and red did not overlap as players, DC's career ended and red's career began. DC was a senior into the spring semester of 1990. Red's career started in the fall of 1990. So their careers abutted. They were here for 8 consecutive years, but they did not overlap. That said, I'm sure they were like met. I'm sure they were aware of each other. I'm sure in some capacity, again, I don't know what their relationship is. I'm sure in some capacity if they've known each other for closing on 35 years. Red, a year plus ago, stepped into an extremely tough spot. And a tough spot is following a legend. Whatever sport, wherever you are, if you're the guy after the guy, that is a big job. And I'm not saying Derek shouldn't express his opinion. Clearly he has one in this scenario. But all I know is this is not making Red's job easier to make Syracuse basketball good. This does not make Adrian Autry's day at the office today, tomorrow, next week an easier one. So I find that strange. Like, Derek Coleman has never had ill will toward, like, the success of Syracuse basketball. He's certainly opinionated about it, and he can have whatever opinion he wants, and that's fine. This is a weird one to say out loud. And I don't get what is this really besmirching 44? Personally, and I've said this before, I'll say it again right now. I think the university has gone completely backwards on the idea of 44. If 44 is to be the most important number in Syracuse athletics, so important that if you need to dial a university phone number, you need those 2 digits. So important that if you need to send mail to the university, you need those 2 digits. That number shouldn't be hidden away and protected. That number should be celebrated and active. And not just in football, where clearly is the reason that we celebrate because of Jim, because of Ernie, because of Floyd. No, we don't need last names for any of this. And not because of basketball, where obviously Derek and John Wallace continued on that legacy. You're a women's lacrosse fan, shout out to Emma Ward. I would propose the other way, that every team that wears numbers on Syracuse's campus should have somebody wearing a 44 every year. And it doesn't have to be your best player. Give it to a senior. Keep it active. Keep the legacy alive and talked about. Because you're Derek Coleman. You've not played at Syracuse in 34 years. John Wallace's career ended 28 years ago. That's the last time a 44 has stepped foot on the court in a Syracuse men's basketball uniform. Jim, Floyd, and Ernie, they've all passed away. Like, I get there's other 44s alive. Michael Owens is still walking around. Rob Conrad. Like, there's plenty of 44s still alive. But literally, it gets harder and harder to talk about the legacy of the great 44 because it is so long ago, you have to create reasons to talk about it. If somebody was wearing 44 on the football field, on the basketball field, on the soccer field, 44 would be a weird soccer number, but roll with me here. On, field hockey, lacrosse, whatever. Pick a sport with numbers on it. Softball, volleyball. Like, a 44 would be weird in some of these sports, but because it would be weird, it would be even more noteworthy. Oh, you got a 44 on the volleyball team. That's peculiar. What's up with that? Oh, Ernie Davis, you say. He went here. That makes sense to me. Putting it on the shelf and hiding it and being like angrily protective of it. Why? I don't know what there's to gain of this from a guy like Derek Coleman. I understand you like your legacy. I get it. But in my mind, Derek's legacy is secured. It's not going to fall apart because Eddie Lampkin, what has an average season wearing the number? That's not going to make us think poorly of Derek Coleman. If Eddie Lampkin averages 9 points and 5 rebounds a game this year, John Wallace's shot against Georgia still went in. I don't get it. We'd love your thoughts as we roll along at 315-437-7644. What say you about what DC says about Eddie Lampkin wearing 44? That'll wrap up our Burdick BMW opening drive here today. With that, let's get a check of the markets.